Grew up in a single parent home. My mother raised me to the best of her ability without my father. My father was heavy into drugs and alcohol, and so it was very painful for me to not have him in my life consistently. He would come around here and there, but his drugs and his alcohol would take control. He would fight my mother. So my child life was pretty dysfunctional. I had a lot of voids, a lot of times where I needed my father to answer questions for me. I needed my father to help build my self-esteem. I needed my father to teach me how to be a boy, how to ride a bike, how do you wrestle, how do you fight, how to defend myself. I needed my father for those critical times in my life, but I didn't have him, and so that made growing up very, very difficult. I felt like something was different about me. I started to think something was wrong with me because I wasn't like the other boys. I wasn't into sports. I didn't know how to fight. I didn't really know how to defend myself. The girls weren't really interested in me. I was not like the other boys in my neighborhood and in my school. And so from that, it kind of made me like a moving, walking, talking target for ridicule. So I suffered with so much rejection when I was a kid. I started to blame myself for my father not being around. And so growing up, I started to long for any type of affection and acceptance. And so any type of male attention that I would receive, I would just accept it. It didn't matter where it came from, how it would come, what I had to do, I accepted it. So it was during that time that I was introduced to my first sexual experience with another boy my age. This was still in elementary school, and he just asked me if I wanted to try something. And so I think that was the entry point. That was the thing that shaped my sexual character, because when it happened, I found myself enjoying it. And even though I felt like something was wrong, I hesitated, I didn't want to do it at first. I knew it was wrong, but I feared being rejected again. And so I went along with it, and I found myself like it. And from there, my next experience was with a male babysitter. And I was about 10 years old at that time, and he asked if I wanted to play a game, and I said, okay, yeah, sure. And so we did some sexual things, and I was a bit uncomfortable with it, but again, I went along with it because he was another man showing me the attention that I was not receiving from any other male in my life. And so I was just excited to have that attention. When I went into high school, I was always afraid to call myself gay because I've always been in church, always been a Christian, always been told that it's wrong. The church that I went to when I was first introduced to this lifestyle was very, stringent about that lifestyle. I remember there was a young man who was very flamboyant, who was very open about his sexuality and being homosexual. And the way that they ridiculed him and they talked about him, it scared me. And there were times when he would cry out for help. He would ask for help. He would ask for counseling. And they would ridicule and talk about him and badger him. And it hurt me so bad that I felt like I had to hide it. I think I had one day where I had a breakdown and I said, I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm going to live a homosexual lifestyle, and this is who I'm going to be. It was a very dark time in my life, because during that time I was newly married. I think we had our first son already, and that was at the center of my struggle. That was at the place where my struggle became even worse, because I got married thinking that would solve the problems. At work, I had a boyfriend, and I had other guys that I was talking to and flirting with and text messaging and picture messaging and making out with, and I had this whole other life at work. The gentleman that I had started developing this deep relationship with, we had started planning this new life. We were planning to move away to Arizona. I was going to, leave my family. We were looking up jobs. We were looking up houses. He had actually gone down to Arizona to look at a house for us. We were building this life and planning to run away together. And I can remember one day when I finally made the decision that I just could not live this double life anymore, because you have to remember, at that time, I was a father, I was a husband, and I was a minister in my church. And so I was literally living these different lives. And so I just got to a point where it was exhausting. I could not live all of those lives anymore. I could not mix them. They were starting to get mixed up and things were starting to come out, and I just couldn't hide it anymore. I had a breakdown one afternoon. I went to work and I was sitting in my car in the parking lot, and I said, God, I cannot take this anymore. And if you don't help me, if you don't deliver me, I'm not going to come out of it. And in that moment, I felt an instantaneous presence of God just fell on me, and I wept for about a half an hour to an hour, because I could feel God's love wrapping his arms around me, and I could hear God saying to me, whenever you're ready, I'm here. And I stuck my hand out and I said, God, you're going to have to help me. And things just started to fall apart. I lost my desire to do it. And in that instant moment, God began to separate us. He quit his job, so we were no longer working together. We lost contact. My phone completely broke into pieces miraculously. So I had no phone numbers, no nothing. I could not recover anything. And so that was amazing to me. That was the beginning of a great journey, very long journey, but great journey. I went through years of struggling, feeling like this was something that I would have to live with for the rest of my life. And it was not until I made a personal decision to change, and by the power of God, I was able to change. But I am telling my story now because I want people to see and to know that it is very well possible to come out of living a homosexual lifestyle. My name is Raleigh Mayberry Jr., and I am an ex-homosexual.